Jrue Holiday and his case in being in the Hall of Fame. So ever since the conclusion of these Olympics, obviously with the conclusion of a very important event like the Olympics, there's going to be a lot of players that, especially for United States basketball teams, there's going to be a lot of them that add more to their legacy. So, you know, Carmelo Anthony, while he doesn't have much of, a talking point for his NBA career in being in the Basketball Hall of Fame, he does make the argument with all of his Olympic history and his Olympic gold medals. The fact that he has 3 of them already makes him a worthy Hall of Fame, a worthy first ballot Hall of Famer compared to, let's say, if you were to remove all of those, gold medals and all of those first place, achievements that he has in the Olympics, maybe his career might not seem all that great. It's really like his Olympics that end up giving him that final push. Similar to how, Jrue Holiday and these Olympics might give him the final push for being into the Hall of Fame. So let me just go ahead and read off some of Jrue Holiday's accolades. He is a 2-time NBA champion. He is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, a 2-time All-Star, a 6-time All-Defensive selection, and he has 15,000 plus career points, 1,400 career steals, as well as 6,000 plus career assists. And, that just begs the question, does Jrue Holiday belong in the Hall of Fame? And given these 2 Olympics and, the 2 championships that he has, it's very difficult to tell because, one of the things about the NBA, the Basketball Hall of Fame, is that a lot of basketball players end up making it in the end. Like, you think it's easy to make it to the NFL Hall of Fame, it's even easier to make it into the Basketball Hall of Fame, especially if you have an Olympic resume under your belt. But according to this article, now that the dust has settled on the 2023-24 National Basketball Association season, with the Boston Celtics winning the NBA Finals, discussion on some of the best players have started. So over Jrue Holiday's career, he's averaged 16 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, and 6.4 assists. Holiday has also been one of the best defensive players in the league as well as in his time. And defense at the point guard position has sort of been a lost art. Like, you don't really see that many guards now, be heavily focused on the defensive side of the ball as much as you were to find them, in the 80s or in the 90s, right? You don't really see point guards handling much of the defensive load. You see them more, working on the offensive side of the ball and actually trying to run the offense a little bit more efficiently as opposed to, being a unit on the defensive end. But Jrue Holiday, and throughout the span of Jrue Holiday's career, he's been a little bit different. He's been a competent defender for the majority of his career in the NBA. And he also has, a pretty competent arsenal on the offensive side of the ball as well. So he's one of those rare two-way guards that's pretty competent on both ends. And he wins. Like, he's been part of winning teams for, not just one time in his career, but multiple times in his career. Like, apart from recently winning with the Boston Celtics, he's won with Giannis Antetokounmpo on the Bucks, was arguably the second option on that team, and, won a championship when nobody really expected them to win a championship. I mean, at that time, you would think that, maybe the Lakers or maybe the Brooklyn Nets would end up winning. You wouldn't think that the Milwaukee Bucks would end up winning the championship. It was one of those rare occurrences where it was like the favorite to end up winning the finals ended up being a completely different team in the end as opposed to the team that everyone was rooting for from the start. And there was a recent quote going in, while he may fall short of a bid for the Hall of Fame, Holiday is still a very good player. The Hall of Fame is reserved for the elite of the elite, and Holiday may not make the cut. He might not make first ballot, that I will agree. He might not make first ballot, but he might end up making, the third ballot. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the ballot where he ends up making it in. And Obviously, it's still relatively young there's still a lot more time in his career. His career doesn't end with these Olympics. So if the Celtics end up going back to back and he's a part of that, then maybe we'll be looking at this conversation a little bit differently and be like, yeah, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But as of where things stand right now, I'm not entirely sure, because yes, he may have 2 championships, but he was never the best player on any of those championship teams, even though I don't really think that should mean much, because despite the fact that he wasn't a number 2 option for both of the times. I mean, he was for Milwaukee, but he wasn't for Boston. I do think that his role for both of those teams should not be undervalued just because he wasn't the number 1 option, because he had very important games in both of those stints going for the championship. Like, he played pretty well when he was on Milwaukee, and he ended up, having a pretty decent game in the finals with the Boston Celtics, and he was pretty valuable for the Boston Celtics overall. And I don't think, your performance has to be, at least top 2 on your team in order for that ring to even be considered in your career, because there are a lot of players that have multiple championships, but whether or not they're Hall of Fame talent is still something to be desired. That's not really. You could have, a pretty good resume in terms of winning, but it's if you're not one of the better players on those championship teams, then it's really difficult to get that championship considered by the media. For example, T-Mac, a lot of people, they say that he didn't make the finals, right? I mean, technically he did make the finals in 2013, but it wasn't as a number 1 option. They made it to the finals in spite of him as opposed to because of him. And a lot of people don't really count that finals appearance because of the fact that he wasn't the best option on the team. So that's just a little bit of an example of how some sort of accolade that you might have under your belt gets sort of shoved under the rug, especially when you're in the MVP, not MVP conversation, but when you're in a Hall of Fame debate and people are debating on whether or not you belong in there. But I will say, having that kind of resume and being considered into the Hall of Fame, it's definitely a lot more than what several other players might have on their resume. Like Allen Iverson, he hasn't won anything notable in his basketball career. I mean, he's more notorious for making it, for winning 3rd place in 2004 in the Olympics as opposed to taking the gold. That team is more infamous than it is famous. And if it wasn't for Allen Iverson winning the MVP, he most definitely wouldn't be any kind of Hall of Fame conversation. But, Jrue Holiday with his 2 championships and his 2 gold medals stacks up a little bit better, for having a career to be called, a Hall of Famer. So that's sort of all that I have to say about this segment. I think, we still have to wait just a little bit. I know Jrue Holiday is relatively old compared to majority of the guards, but his career isn't over yet. So we don't even know if he's thinking of joining the Olympics next 4 years, coming in the future when the Olympics come to California. We have no idea that he's going to be participating in there. And maybe if he ends up winning gold for a 3rd time, his Hall of Fame case is going to be a little bit more, it's going to be better. But that's sort of all that I have on this first segment. So now I will go ahead and go into the second segment where I talk about the top 10 point guards going into this next NBA season right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind.